The day Grandma died, our family somehow managed to turn a funeral into a business meeting. I wish I were exaggerating. Grandma's house sat on 5 beautiful acres just outside town. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't some celebrity estate. It was simply home. Every birthday, holiday, barbecue, and family disaster happened there. If someone got married, it happened in Grandma's garden. If someone got divorced, Grandma fed them pie in the kitchen until they stopped crying. I practically grew up there. While my sister Brittany spent summers posting beach selfies and my cousins disappeared whenever work was involved, I spent my weekends helping Grandma paint fences, repair sheds, and plant flowers. She taught me how to fix a leaky faucet, balance a checkbook, and spot dishonest people before they opened their mouths. That last lesson turned out to be particularly useful. The funeral had barely ended before my parents, my sister, and several relatives started discussing property values. Not memories. Not Grandma. Property values. That land alone is worth a fortune, my uncle said. We should sell immediately. Brittany agreed. I stood there holding a plate of untouched funeral food, wondering if anyone else found this horrifying. Apparently not. Over the next few weeks, family meetings happened without me. Phone calls were made without me. Decisions were finalized without me. Then one afternoon I received a message informing me that Grandma's house had been sold. Informing me. Not asking me. Not discussing it. Informing me. I discovered that every relative had received a share of the proceeds except me. When I confronted my parents, my mother sighed dramatically. You never really needed the money. I stared at her. I was renting a tiny apartment with furniture that looked rescued from 3 separate yard sales. What does that even mean? Dad shrugged. Your sister has bigger goals. Bigger goals apparently meant luxury vacations, expensive handbags, and a boyfriend who treated employment like an optional hobby. A month later, the family celebrated the sale at an upscale restaurant. I wasn't invited. Fortunately, social media exists. Brittany posted photos of champagne glasses with captions about new beginnings. My aunt posted pictures of seafood towers. My cousin uploaded a video laughing about how everyone was finally getting paid. Then came Brittany's favorite comment. At least some of us know how to succeed. That one got hundreds of likes. I stared at the screen for a long moment before laughing. Not because it was funny. Because nobody there understood what had just happened. See, the original buyer had purchased Grandma's property as an investment. He planned to divide the land and sell portions to developers. What my family didn't know was that I'd spent years saving money. I lived cheaply. I worked constantly. I invested carefully. While they were showing off new cars and expensive vacations, I was quietly building something. So when the investor ran into financial trouble 6 months after buying the property, I made a phone call through a small company I'd created years earlier. 3 weeks later, the deal was done. Nobody connected the dots. Nobody even suspected it. The ownership records listed my company. The company listed a business address. The address led nowhere near me. The entire transaction happened so quietly that my family continued bragging about the sale for months. One evening I drove out to the property alone. The sunset painted the fields gold exactly the way Grandma used to love. The old porch still creaked. The wind chime still hung beside the front door. The garden needed work, but it was still beautiful. I unlocked the front door with my own key. For the first time since Grandma's death, I walked through the house without feeling angry. Every room held memories. The kitchen where Grandma taught me recipes. The living room where she beat everyone at cards. The back porch where she'd sit every evening and judge passing neighbors with terrifying accuracy. I could almost hear her laughing. Then I imagined Brittany's face if she ever discovered the truth. I imagined my parents realizing who actually owned the property now. I imagined every relative who celebrated cutting me out learning that the house had quietly come back to me. For the first time in months I smiled. Grandma always said patience was cheaper than revenge. Standing alone on her porch with the keys in my hand and the deeds safely locked away, I began to suspect she was right. because none of them had any idea that the biggest surprise of their lives had already happened. The first year after reclaiming Grandma's house was exhausting. The second year was expensive. The third year was when things became interesting. At first, my plan had been simple. Restore the property. Preserve Grandma's legacy. Maybe rent the place occasionally for family gatherings or local events. Then aliens arrived. Not invading Earth aliens. Not giant space fleet aliens. Just regular aliens participating in a cultural exchange program after humanity finally joined the galactic community. Most people reacted with excitement. Others reacted with fear. I reacted by accidentally spilling coffee on one. That's how I met her. She was standing behind me at a cafe when I turned around too quickly. The coffee landed directly on her silver blue jacket. I nearly died from embarrassment. She stared at the stain. I stared at the stain. The entire cafe stared at the stain. Then she smiled. Is this a traditional human greeting? The whole room burst into laughter. I spent the next 20 minutes apologizing. She spent the next 20 minutes asking questions about Earth customs. 3 hours later we were still talking. Over the following months we became inseparable. She possessed an endless curiosity about humans. Unfortunately, she also possessed absolutely no understanding of human romance. One evening she asked why a man at a restaurant had hidden a diamond ring inside a dessert. Was he attempting to poison his mate? I laughed so hard I nearly fell off my chair. Another time she watched a romantic movie and spent 30 minutes trying to understand why the couple didn't simply discuss their feelings. Both individuals appear irrational. They are. Then why is this considered romantic? Because humans are weird. That is becoming increasingly obvious. Despite the constant misunderstandings, our relationship grew stronger. Eventually I brought her to Grandma's property. She fell in love with it immediately. Not with me. The property. The gardens. The porch. The giant oak tree. The flower paths. The old-fashioned charm. She spent hours exploring every corner. Then she attended a local wedding. That experience changed everything. Afterward she sat beside me on the porch with a thoughtful expression. I have a question. That's usually dangerous. This entire species spends enormous amounts of money to gather relatives together for one day. Correct. Even relatives they dislike. Especially relatives they dislike. She looked genuinely confused. Humans are fascinating. We prefer terrifying. She ignored me. This property would be an exceptional wedding venue. At first I laughed. Then I stopped laughing. Because the idea was brilliant. The next year became a whirlwind of renovations. We restored gardens. Built outdoor reception areas. Updated the house. Added event spaces while preserving Grandma's original charm. My partner contributed dozens of ideas inspired by celebrations from other worlds. Some were successful. Some were disasters. One alien-inspired dance floor accidentally projected floating holographic butterflies that followed guests into restrooms. Another decorative system interpreted loud cheering as a sign of emergency evacuation. We learned quickly. Word spread. Then it exploded. Couples loved the venue. They loved the beautiful grounds. They loved the unique atmosphere. They especially loved the famous Earth Meets Galaxy wedding package my partner designed. Within 2 years, bookings were arriving from across the state. Within 3 years, they were arriving from across the country. By year 4, we had become one of the most sought-after wedding venues in the county. The waiting list became ridiculous. Then it became legendary. Eventually new clients were hearing the same answer. I'm sorry. The earliest available date is approximately 2 years from now. Some laughed. Some cried. One bride attempted to bribe us with homemade cookies. My partner accepted the cookies but still refused the booking. Business was thriving. Life was good. Most importantly, my family remained completely unaware. The venue operated under a business name. The ownership records pointed to the company. The company pointed to us. Nobody connected the dots. Which was why I nearly choked on my morning coffee one day when a reservation request appeared in my inbox. The bride's name looked very familiar. Brittany. My sister. The same sister who had celebrated selling Grandma's house. The same sister who had helped cut me out of the inheritance. And according to the request, she wanted to book the most popular wedding venue in the county. The venue she had absolutely no idea used to be Grandma's house. Or that I owned every single inch of it. At first, I thought the reservation request had to be a coincidence. Then I opened the attached file. There was my sister's photo. There was her fiancé. There was the preferred wedding date. And there was a very enthusiastic message explaining that she absolutely had to have her wedding at our venue because it was the most magical place in the county. I laughed so hard that my alien girlfriend came running into my office. "Why are you making that noise?" I turned the screen toward her. She read the application. Then she read it again. Then a slow smile appeared on her face. "Oh. Exactly. The human who helped steal your inheritance wishes to celebrate love on your property. When you say it like that, it sounds even funnier." The truly entertaining part was that Brittany had no idea. Not even a clue. Over the following weeks, her wedding planner called repeatedly. The woman somehow managed to sound both cheerful and demanding at the same time. "We understand there's a waiting list." "There is. But surely exceptions can be made." "They cannot. My client is willing to pay extra. So are most of our clients." Every conversation followed the same pattern. Money. Pressure. More money. More pressure. Meanwhile, my girlfriend treated the situation like her favorite television show. Every evening she would ask for updates. "Has the entitled sister attempted emotional manipulation today?" "Not yet." "Excellent. The day is still young." Then came Brittany's emails. She wanted premium services. She wanted preferred dates. She wanted private accommodations. She wanted guarantees. Apparently, being the center of the universe was exhausting work. Eventually, her planner requested an in-person tour. I approved it immediately. My girlfriend nearly fell out of her chair laughing. "You are enjoying this far too much." "Probably. You are definitely enjoying this too much." She wasn't wrong. The day of the tour arrived. I intentionally stayed out of sight while the planner guided Brittany and her fiancé around the property. Security cameras made observation remarkably convenient. At first, everything seemed normal. The fiancé loved the gardens. The planner praised the decorations. Brittany kept talking about flower arrangements. Then they approached the front porch. I noticed Brittany slowing down. Her smile faded slightly. She looked around. Then she looked around again. The old oak tree stood exactly where it always had. The front porch remained unchanged. The flower garden followed the same layout Grandma had designed decades earlier. Confusion began spreading across her face. She walked toward the front steps. Stopped. Turned. Looked across the yard. Then suddenly I saw recognition. The exact moment everything clicked. Her eyes widened. Her mouth opened. The color drained from her face. "Oh my God!" The planner looked concerned. "Is something wrong?" "This place." She stared at the house. "No." Then she practically sprinted toward the front door. Perfect timing. Because that was when I stepped outside. For several seconds nobody spoke. Brittany looked at me. I looked at Brittany. Her fiancé looked at both of us like he had accidentally wandered into a hostage negotiation. Finally she pointed at the house. "You!" "Hello, Brittany. What are you doing here?" "I own the place." The silence that followed was magnificent. Her fiancé blinked. The planner blinked. Even a nearby gardener stopped pretending not to listen. Brittany laughed nervously. "No, seriously. I am serious. You work here?" "I own it." Her expression transformed from confusion into disbelief. Then disbelief became horror. Then horror became anger. "That's impossible. Actually, the paperwork was surprisingly straightforward." You can't own Grandma's house. I can if I bought it. You bought it? Several years ago. The planner quietly stepped backward. A survival instinct, perhaps. Meanwhile, Brittany looked like her entire understanding of reality had shattered. But we sold it. I know. You were cut out of the inheritance. I know that too. Her fiancé slowly turned toward her. You cut him out of the inheritance? Nobody answered. Which was answer enough. Then came my favorite part. The planner, still trying to salvage her professional composure, cleared her throat. Perhaps we should discuss available wedding dates. I smiled. Of course. Brittany immediately brightened. For one hopeful second she thought everything could still be fixed. Then I opened the booking calendar. Every weekend was occupied. Every holiday was occupied. Every premium date was occupied. Month after month after month. Her smile disappeared again. The earliest opening is approximately 2 years from now. 2 years? 2 years. You have to be kidding. I wish I were. Business has been excellent. She stared at the calendar, as if it had personally insulted her. Then she looked back at me. For the first time, she fully understood the situation. The brother she had dismissed. The relative everyone mocked. The person they had excluded. Now controlled the one thing she wanted most. And there wasn't a single thing she could do about it. The following month was one of the most entertaining periods of my life. Apparently, discovering that I owned the venue had activated a family-wide emergency response system. First came the phone calls. My mother called 3 times in a single day. My father called 6. 2 aunts, 3 cousins, and an uncle I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly remembered I existed. The messages all sounded remarkably similar. Family should help family. Let's move forward. What's done is done. My personal favorite came from a cousin who had ignored me for nearly a decade. We've always been close. I actually checked the message twice to make sure it wasn't intended for someone else. Every conversation ended the same way. They wanted a wedding date. Immediately. Without waiting. Without consequences. Without acknowledging anything that had happened. One afternoon my parents arrived at the venue unannounced. I met them on Grandma's old porch. For a moment, none of us spoke. The house looked beautiful. The gardens were thriving. The property was worth far more than when they had sold it. Dad finally cleared his throat. You did well. Thank you. Mom forced a smile. We're proud of you. My girlfriend, sitting beside me, whispered quietly. Humans only deploy this strategy when they require something. Correct. My parents pretended not to hear her. Mom folded her hands. Your sister is devastated. I noticed. She has dreamed about this wedding for years. And Grandma dreamed about keeping this house in the family. That ended the sympathy campaign rather quickly. For the first time, either parent had a response. The truth can be surprisingly inconvenient. A week later, Brittany arrived herself. This time she wasn't angry. She was desperate. Which was new. We sat beneath the giant oak tree where Grandma used to drink lemonade every summer. I made mistakes, she admitted. That's true. You don't have to sound so happy about it. I wasn't expecting honesty. She laughed despite herself. Then she looked around the property. The gardens. The reception area. The restored house. Everything looked better than it ever had before. You really saved it. I glanced toward Grandma's porch. No. I just finished what she started. For several seconds Brittany remained silent. Then she nodded. I should have helped you. Probably. I should have stood up for you. Definitely. I was awful. Without question. She rolled her eyes. You could make this slightly easier. I waited years for this conversation. Even she laughed at that. In the end, I offered a compromise. Not because they deserved one. Because Grandma would have wanted one. If Brittany wanted the venue, she would publicly acknowledge what happened. No lies. No excuses. No rewriting history. Additionally, a portion of the wedding budget would fund a community garden and scholarship program in Grandma's name. To my surprise, Brittany agreed immediately. The rest of the family complained. Then they realized they had no leverage. So they agreed too. The announcement became local news. People loved the story. The scholarship fund received donations. The community garden expanded. Grandma's name became attached to something meaningful instead of a property dispute. And for the first time in years, my family stopped arguing. Mostly because they were too busy being embarrassed. The wedding itself was spectacular. Guests filled the gardens. Music echoed across the property. The reception took place exactly where Grandma used to host family cookouts. Throughout the evening, dozens of people approached me to thank me for preserving the house. Others shared stories about Grandma's kindness. Even Brittany gave a speech acknowledging everything publicly. My alien girlfriend listened with fascination. You humans possess a strange habit. What habit? You create disasters. True. Then organize expensive celebrations after solving them. Also true. I find this species exhausting. As the reception continued, I looked at her and realized I wanted every future adventure, every future disaster, and every future celebration to include her. So I stood up, borrowed the microphone, and proposed. The crowd erupted. My girlfriend stared at me in complete shock. Then she smiled. Is this another human ritual involving public emotional vulnerability? Yes. Excellent. She kissed me before I could say anything else. The guests cheered. My family cheered. Even Brittany cheered. Then, at that exact moment, Grandma's old wind chime hanging from the porch suddenly rang across the property. Everyone looked up. There wasn't a breeze. Not even a little one. Silence spread through the crowd. My uncle looked nervous. My aunt crossed herself. Several cousins visibly panicked. My girlfriend leaned toward me. Was that normal? No. Should I be concerned? Probably not. The wind chime rang again. Half the family immediately started behaving better. I couldn't stop laughing. Because if Grandma was somehow watching, I knew exactly what she was thinking. After all those years, the house had finally returned home. And somehow, she still managed to get the last laugh.